Welcome to the Church of Thomas. God's Hand, 3:11:11. I recently had an experience where by following instructions I basically injured something, and that really bothered me a lot. But I think it worked out for the best because the clothing I had damaged, apparently it was time to retire them, and in my heart I was worried that this was a favorite piece of clothing. And it tore me up for quite a while until I figured out that it had turned out for the best. That there had been a desire to go out and get a new shirt that I had ruined. And, well, anyway. There is a purpose in many of the accidents that we do in life, and that sometimes these accidents are sort of nudged along by the hand of God. Consider this. Sometimes the old has to be removed before something new can be created. This happened with the way that Judaism had become written in stone and not following what God's intention had been. So something new had to be created. Christianity was the result of that, and Jesus taught us how to do it. It did use the basis of Judaism and the God that the Jews had been taught to worship, but it took it to another level. One of the readings I'd like to do is Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak out, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. In the Reconciler Gospel of Thomas, there's also a verse. It's verse 36. Jesus said, "If you trust the one, you will have no desire to think about what you will wear. Your needs are already known." So basically the idea is that God knows what is needed, and sometimes the refuse, the old, the time to discard comes. And we may see it as a horribly traumatic event like a forest fire. But one of the things I saw in a forest fire in Yosemite Park was that it had burned large numbers of acres of trees, and everybody was in uproar about how horrible it was that the forest was gone forever. I visited about 2 or 3 years later, and the young trees that were growing up in the ashes of this dead forest were magnificent. They were everywhere, and they were so much more diverse than the old forest had been. By removing the dead material, by breaking down the old ideas, it created nutrients for these new trees. Matter of fact, I learned later that apparently there are some seeds of some of these trees that cannot germinate, can't grow into a little baby tree unless they are scarified, unless they are put through the fire. It's like us. We can't be made new until we go through the fire too. And from the ashes of our old experiences, we can grow a new tree. God bless the whole world, no exceptions. Angel Eliza.